as we record this on Monday, March 10th, President Donald Trump was just on television hailing the arrest of a Palestinian student at Columbia University, saying, and I quote, "It's the first of many," end quote, in a crackdown on pro-Palestinian activism. He is referring, of course, to the arrest and detention of Mahmoud Khalil, who is a graduate student who is a leading figure in the anti-apartheid pro-Palestinian protests there at Columbia. So, first of all, any coach, I guess I was going to ask you any cogent facts. Well, he has a green card, so there's no reason he should be addressed, right? Or arrested. And he's married to an American who is 8 months pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah, the way in which this arrest happened also speaks volumes. He was at his home. The federal agents came and arrested him in the lobby of his building. His wife was present, and at first they said that they'd revoked his student visa, and him and his wife said, well, he's not on a student visa anymore. He is a permanent legal resident of the United States, as we colloquially refer to it as a green card holder. My parents are green card holders. I was a green card holder for a long time before becoming a US citizen. And you are, basically you have to commit a very serious crime to have your green card revoked. And when these agents were told, well, he's no longer a student visa holder, he has a green card and here's the documentation, they said, well, his green card has been revoked as well. Whether or not that's true is still a little bit up in the air. But if it hasn't been true, if it wasn't true when he was arrested, I'm sure Trump will make sure it's true. They arrested him and they threatened then to arrest his wife as well if she continued to sort of protest about it. It should be incredibly chilling. This is giving me, as the Gen Zers say, this is giving me 2000 to 2003 vibes with the USA Patriot Act. This is precisely what George W. Bush did after the Iraq War was launched. I remember because I couldn't go out and cover protests because my media employer was worried that I would be arrested. And in the course of being arrested, I could be deported for being a green card holder who was arrested. And that was something that the USA Patriot Act allowed, which was very much a chilling against political speech. Trump is basically continuing that tradition, but he has upped the ante because this is supposedly all in the name of protecting students from anti-Semitism.
And we'll get to the anti-Semitism in a minute. But interesting you draw the connection with George W. Bush, who's sort of on the Democratic side of the aisle, who's somehow been rehabilitated as kind of a nice guy. No, he was a war criminal. He did a lot of very totalitarian things. But to make it even worse, as if it could be worse, first of all, Mahmoud Khalil's attorney, Amy Greer, told ABC News that despite informing agents that he was here legally with a green card, ICE detained him. And at one point during a phone call with agents, this is the lawyer, they hung up on her. So, showing an arrogant disregard for the law, Donald Trump said Khalil was a, quote, radical foreign pro-Hamas student in a post on Truth Social. And when his wife went to visit him, you know about this, I'm sure. When she went to visit him, he was initially detained in New Jersey, having been arrested in New York City. She was told he wasn't there. Apparently, he's in Jena, Louisiana.
They've disappeared him. Like, it's kind of terrifying. I mean, maybe he'll end up in Guantanamo. And that's the thing, is like, it would actually not shock me at all if they scooped this guy up and sent him to Guantanamo. And it is very, very, very chilling because when Trump was running for president, I remember him being very, much championed by a small sliver of Arab Americans because he said that he would end the Palestine war. or the war on Gaza, rather, the Israeli war on Gaza. And I don't think any of them expected this. And yeah. But here's the other part of it that is really shocking to me is that it's not shocking, but this is actually very much par for the course. Republicans for generations have seen university campuses as hotbeds of liberalism. I mean, is it liberalism's fault if critical thinking skills go hand in hand with progressive values, right? The more you know about the world, the more critically you think about it, the more you naturally end up on the left part of the spectrum. Because if you are thinking critically about it, that's where you end up. And if you're on the right part of the spectrum, you're just not thinking critically about it. Because unfortunately, that's most conservatism these days is based on ignorance and disinformation and racism. So they have wanted to target universities for a long time. And hand in hand with Mahmoud Khalil's arrest is the pulling of federal aid from Columbia University. A lot of US universities rely on financial federal aid from the government. They have various contracts with the government. There's also student financial aid that is under threat. At a time when students are already struggling with college debt, the few resources that they have from the federal government, which of course are overseen by the Department of Education that Trump is threatening to completely obliterate, they're threatening to take these away because really they don't want students to be critical thinking university graduates. So this is also an attack on the ability of students to express themselves on campuses. These should be sites of campuses should be sites of free speech, of expression, of understanding, of exchange of ideas. And those pro-Palestinian encampments were that last year. I visited several of them in Southern California. There was nothing violent there. They were these beautiful spaces where people were encouraged to discuss ideas. And moreover, a lot of Jewish students are in the leadership of these organizations and these efforts. So this is an attack on universities as well.
Well, you bring up several excellent points, one of which is, as far as conservatives are concerned, they preach the free market and economics, and then they just try to monopolize and crush the free market with their policies. But they certainly don't believe in a free marketplace of ideas either, because they try to suppress them. But as you and I both know, it's not like there's a white hat in this picture. It's not like there's a good guy in this picture. A lot of this repression of Trump has taken it to new extremes of viciousness, but the suppression of speech on campus began with the student encampments under Joe Biden and a Democratic Congress. So we have the situation now. When I was a kid attending as a high school student, attending demonstrations, you'd get you got a fair amount of defense. We'd be defended by Democrats would say, well, I don't like the way these kids say what they say, and I don't agree with them, but this is America. We shouldn't be beating them up, because that was the thing, beating up demonstrators then. But we couldn't count on the Democrats now to defend. I visited the encampments too, and this militarization of the campus spaces began, I would say, not only under a Democratic administration, but with the support of the Democratic administration.
Absolutely. And in fact, when there was mass repression last year under Biden, when hundreds of students on campuses, including on Columbia's campus, which was a center of these protests, police arrested 109 people, mostly students, when basically the Columbia administration requested NYPD to come on campus because they were under fire. Remember, we had university presidents being fired and being pressured to resign. And with the blessing of the Democratic Party, police departments were brought onto campuses to arrest students. And so many people, including those who are now horrified at what Trump is doing, kind of looked away when that was happening last year, right? If the Democratic Party had sided with free speech rights for students, with pro-Palestinian students, they could have even said, look, I don't agree with their position on ending genocide, which, like, what a thing to say, right? Like, they, even if they said, well, I don't agree with their position on calling for an end to genocide, but I support their right to protest on campus, then they would have had a leg to stand on now to turn around and criticize Trump for doing what he's doing. But they were part of the rah-rah, let's rid our campuses of pro-Palestinian voices. And in fact, I haven't heard that much Democratic Party criticism of Mahmoud Khalil's arrest. It's still very new. It may come about. Let's hope Chuck Schumer and, Pelosi and all of the Hakeem Jeffries, all of these people say something about Trump's arrest. And if they do, it should be pointed out that they laid the groundwork for Trump to do this by demonizing the protesters, by speaking out against campus encampments, and not actually backing our students, our young people who are just so brave, and who were the voice of the anti-genocide movement last year in this country.
And heroes around the world, heroes everywhere but here, it seems.
Yeah.
And they did it, the Democrats as well as Trump, allegedly in the name of anti-Semitism, which is strictly political in this case, use of the word, because all of the student statements I've seen have been extremely careful about distinguishing the Jewish people from the state of Israel. I mean, you could say that opposing apartheid in South Africa was anti-Afrikanerism, but nobody ever made that argument because it was a state is not a people.
Yeah.
So this was done. This groundwork was set, and of course, Trump in taking it one step further is also overtly expressing that you are a terrorist sympathizer if you support the right to life of Palestinian people of all ages. And in that sense, that's also a throwback to George W. Bush, who threw people in jail as so-called terrorist sympathizers because they expressed political views that he disagreed with. So
because they were speaking out against the terror of war, and in this case, the kids are speaking out against the terror of genocide. The height of irony, calling them terrorists for calling out state terrorism. I mean, it's just shocking. And not to mention that this is an administration that is openly aligned with somebody who is an admirer of Hitler. If Elon Musk was not an admirer of Hitlerism, why would he throw up a Nazi symbol at the inauguration?
Well, of course. And by the way, on that topic, the Anti-Defamation League, which used to be a great organization fighting not only anti-Semitism but racism and other good causes, has now become a political outlet for Israel, a state. They really should register as foreign lobbyists, but they refused to condemn. They condemned people at the encampments for calling for peace. They refused to condemn Elon Musk, who knew what he was doing, who his grandfather was cited by a Canadian court for running an organization that used what they called a quote unquote stiff-armed gesture. That's the so-called Technocracy Incorporated. And so it's not like he didn't know. He immediately responded when he was criticized for it by making jokes about it, so-called, which he continues to make jokes about to this day. I did not see that coming. That kind of, of course, it's straight up Hitlerism that nobody will condemn. So, Sonali, what do we do about this?
Yeah, we have to absolutely rise up in protest of what's happening to Mahmoud Khalil. He is the first. Trump has made clear there will be many to follow. That adage, first they came for, is right, very much in play here. If any of us value our right to speak out, I mean, what's next, right? Trump is revoking this guy's green card. Will he revoke the citizenship of his unborn child? Right? Because they've already said that they're going after birthright citizenship. They have gone after birthright citizenship, right? they have gone after birthright citizenship and only been stymied by the lower courts. Maybe it'll go to the Supreme Court and they will get their way on upending birthright citizenship. So this is very much the beginning of, if you're, especially if you're a brown person and you disagree and you speak out, you don't get to be in this country. Green card, citizenship, doesn't matter. Mahmoud Khalil has to be a line in the sand. People have, there's a petition already going around. They've gotten hundreds of thousands of signatures. This needs to be shut down yesterday. And American people have to make it very clear that you can't, no, this is, no, you cannot do this. You cannot take somebody and disappear them for a political protest. There are already laws in place. If he had broken laws, he could have been arrested under existing laws. You don't create a precedent by kicking somebody out of the country and revoking their legal status because you didn't like what they had to say, because if it's going to be done to him, it will be done to the rest of us. So that is what we have to do. The outcry needs to be so huge and so broad. You know, this is what Trump is doing. He is trying to overwhelm us. We have to overwhelm him back. That is the only way to play the game. And we can't, because there are many more of us than there are of him and his supporters. They're really, we are in the majority, and we're sort of silently sitting back. You know, I attended the Women's March over the weekend on Saturday, and I know the Women's March has some major issues. The organizers, right, were caught up in something similar around the definition of anti-Semitism and essentially siding with Zionism. But the attendees were of all women of all stripes. And the difference between January 2017, or March, I should say March 2017, I think the Women's March was actually held in January of that year when he came into power, when Trump first came into power, versus March of 2025 was a tenfold decrease, right? We had 300,000 people in, no, 100-fold decrease, I should say. We had 300,000 people in LA in 2017. This past weekend, we might have had about 3,000, maybe 5,000. Wow. So full decrease in the attendees. Signs were just as militant, but people are feeling like, what's the point? We're apathetic, feeling overwhelmed. Is none of this, you know, does any of this even matter? We can't afford to sit any of this out, people. We can't afford to sit it out.
And don't wait for the Democrats to act, because they've already made it a matter of policy that they're not going to act about anything. I'll tell you, so in addition to looking for that petition that you talked about and signing it, I think, you know, my congressperson is Jamie Raskin. I don't know if he said anything about it. I'm going to write him. I'm going to write my senators. I want you to speak out loud and clear about this. I'll be disappointed in you if you don't, and I'll think about it November of 2026. What else can we do? We'll figure it out as we go along. But you're right. We have to push back, don't we?
Yeah. This is the thin end of the wedge, folks.
It sure is.
It's you know, they'll come for you next. Trust me, they will, right?
They will. We depend on your support here at the 0 Hour, so please give whatever you can at any of the links you see on your screen. Thanks so much.